Right, of course, we have a few of our reporters on the ground as the protests in Wits do continue. And in news just in, there's been reports of disruptions at the Maboneng precinct in Johannesburg city centre. Our reporter Chriselda Lewis is there. Very good afternoon to you, Chriselda. What is happening in the Maboneng precinct at the moment, and what caused these eruptions and disruptions?
All right, Flo, we're not in Maboneng precinct. We're actually in the Braamfontein CBD at the moment, where some police officers, I'll show you now, come towards this direction with me. This police officer here tried to ask the protesting students here to move away from the Braamfontein CBD where we are. And the students are basically saying they're not going to negotiate with this police officer until the person who killed the man yesterday here in Braamfontein as well, until the police officer...
We will do it again in 2021. We will not surrender to you. We are filled with self-hate. We are filled with confusion.
Let me just show you what's also taking place here at the moment is that there is, of course, the students are saying that they're not going to negotiate. They're not going to negotiate with the police at the moment because this is a peaceful protest, as they say. And you see some of the lecture that is, of course, strewn here on this part of the road where we are. This has also slightly been set alight at this particular point. This entire road where I'm standing at the moment on Bertha has basically been cordoned off by strewn stones, as well as some of the litter has been overturned here in the Braamfontein CBD. So, Flo, it certainly seems like the utterances of the Higher Education Minister, Dr. Bladen Zamande, as well as Professor Zeblon Vilakazi from Wits University, the Vice-Chancellor there, have fallen on deaf ears. These students say they are not going to negotiate. They're back on the streets again this afternoon. And I'm not quite sure at this particular point. I've been trying to look for a spokesperson amongst these students that are here at the moment to try and speak to someone who can, but I've been unsuccessful at this particular point. But the general sense here is that students have been marching from one part of Braamfontein to the other, and are saying that they're not going to listen to anyone, even the intervention of police. Just hold on for a second there, Flo.
All right.
Let's all come together. Let's assemble, fighters. Fighters.
Stay with us, Flo, for a second. It seems like one of the student leaders will be addressing the students who've gathered here.
Comrades,
come closer.
You can see that there's one police van here. These comrades, they came to us, they wanted to address us, and we told them, well, look, there's nothing that we will talk with the police. Yesterday, they did not even want to engage us. They opened fire on our brother.
Yes.
Now, when we meet them with arrogance like they did yesterday, this fellow now is calling for backup. Fighters, you don't need to be separated now. Now they are going to target certain individuals. Yes. We must make sure that we are in groups and we are together.
Yes.
Here we are not retreating until free education is granted to the children and the people of South Africa. So fighters, please, let us observe highest form of discipline. Let us not touch anything that doesn't belong to us. We must not anarchize or do anything that would provoke the enemy. The enemy is looking for the reason to shoot and kill us. We're not going to do that. We're going to be peaceful. We're going to sit here. Come and meet us here. We are here. We're not going anywhere. Don't be standing on your own. We'll hear that tomorrow you're arrested. They will come, get you on your own like they did yesterday, and arrest you, and we won't know. Let us stick as a group. I know we are tired. We've been together, but what you must know.
All right, you see some of the vehicles, Flo, that try to pass through here in Braamfontein being turned away. Students say they don't want to be disrupted in their protest for inclusion into tertiary institutions, and basically, you know, for universities to come down and speak to them on the challenges that they're experiencing. experiencing. This policemen who just arrived here a few moments ago tried to engage with the students. The students are saying they're not going to engage with him at this particular point until the police officer who's believed to be responsible for the death of Mthokozisi and Tumba is arrested. They've got nothing to negotiate at this point, and some of the leaders calling for the students to be peaceful in their protest, in that they claim that this police officer is calling for backup. And of course, every time the police do come through, you often see clashes flow with between the police and the students themselves. You'll see here every section of the part of this road has been closed. You can see on the road there, the rocks are strewn across different parts of this particular part of Braamfontein. Some of the Metro Police also stationed on the top towards there as you head up to Kasatu House. Just to give you an idea of those who might know the geography of the Johannesburg CBD, some of the police officers are there, so some of them are moving towards that direction. Right now, this is what has been set to light. One of these Flo, it slips my mind what this thing is called. Perhaps you'd be able to help. But this is what's been set to light here in the middle of the street in Braamfontein. I know, Flo, you've got an answer for that.
It's one of those lids that go on top of the street bins. But what's interesting, as I observe while you're there, is that yesterday it was the police who were, of course, attempting to or did in fact subdue those crowds of students. But it seems today the tables have kind of turned. It seems as though it is the police who have somewhat been subdued. I'm not seeing them running around. I'm not seeing them being armed, and I wonder if there's a direct link to the fact that there was a death yesterday of Mthokozisi Tumba, and that they've really kind of failed in their attempts to kind of calm the crowds yesterday, as the excessive force that they've used has kind of backfired in certain ways. I wonder if that's the sense that you're getting throughout today. As I'm watching the policemen today, they're not the same as the policemen that I was watching on air yesterday.
Well, that's right, Flo, and you can understand this. Without a doubt, from the events that unfolded yesterday with the shooting and killing of Mthokozisi Ntumba, there had to be, I'm not saying that's official, but there had to be some communication somewhere from probably the higher echelons within the South African Police Service. You also heard the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, today send his condolences to the family of the deceased. We've seen the outrage of South Africans against what has taken place. So I'm not saying this as official word, but probably clearly from somewhere, police have been told to somewhat just let it quiet down just a bit, because they would have been here by now. They would have been here. I mean, the throngs of police that we saw yesterday is not what we're seeing in the Braamfontein CBD this afternoon, because you could obviously know that tempers are flaring at this particular point. The death of Mthokozisi Ntumba is still raw in the hearts of South Africans. So police cannot at this stage be seen or afford to be seen as being aggressive. That's how they've been described over the past 24 hours or so. So police have got no choice at this particular stage but to tone it down a bit, if I may, Flo, for lack of a better word, because if they're again seen to be clashing with students, then obviously it would seem as if the police simply don't care about the events yesterday that led to so many South Africans basically saying that the police had been heavy-handed in dealing with the students who are basically protesting for a legitimate cause.
Yeah, and then in terms of the policeman that shot or allegedly rather shot and killed Mthokozisi Ntumba, any word on him? I mean, there have been some questions as I look even on social media, and I even hear the students talking about it now, asking, where is he? Is he being arrested? What's the story? What is the latest? Are we hearing anything at all with regards to that particular policeman? I mean, it was essentially caught on video, wasn't it, Chriselda?
Well, that's right, Flo. And I think on the basis, that you've had this morning, the police minister, Bheki Cele, at the home of the deceased, Mr. Mthokozisi Ntumba, no arrests at that point, Flo, had been made. I did give a check to the Independent Police Investigative Directorate just a couple of moments ago, and I can tell you on the record at this particular point, the official word from IPID and the South African Police Service is that the policemen or men alleged to have been involved in that incident, in the death of Mthokozisi Ntumba, have not yet been arrested. Those investigations are continuing at this point, and I would presume, Flo, that all the evidence, you saw the CCTV footage, including that was obtained by the SABC, they're probably still combing through that evidence and wanting to make sure that once this is done, it is done in a proper way. But that certainly does not help the tensions on the ground, the tensions where students are now saying that was a death that was not supposed to happen. You've got an aggrieved family that is saying you gunned down our brother, our son, our parent for no reason while students were protesting for inclusion into universities, and now you're dragging your feet in terms of trying to get somebody arrested. So that really doesn't help the situation. But I guess the police, when they come back, would probably say they cannot act on the basis of people's emotions. They would simply need to act on the evidence that is put before them. So it's a situation, Flo, I think the more nothing seems to be done in terms of public perception, you're going to continue to see scenes like this on the streets of Johannesburg, and now I understand in other parts of the country as well, at other universities.
I think it's safe to assume at this point then that the protest has now kind of shifted direction in some ways, or two issues are being fought for at this stage: the issue of the killing of Mthokozisi Ntumba, as well as the issue of exclusion. It does seem that it is now two issues that the students are fighting about.
And that's exactly it, Flo. Not that the focus has been moved from the actual reason why students started protesting. You'll see the placards, for example, that they're carrying read "No to austerity budget," which means that the cause itself is still there, but now compelled, or adding to the situation, of course, is what's been described as the senseless killing of a man who had simply gone to a clinic and had walked out and was allegedly shot dead by police. So those two issues at this particular point, because you must remember as well, while the students themselves are protesting for their cause, it was the police that met them yesterday with violence. It was the police who had met them with rubber bullets yesterday. So the students themselves were not armed. So the police certainly have a case to answer in this particular instance. And that issue now, combined with the cause for students, where they say now, and today's picture, as you rightly point out, Flo, is that you hardly see the kind of police numbers that we saw yesterday. Here, just right near the Nelson Mandela Bridge, absolutely nothing. Let me just walk towards this direction, Flo, and I'll tell you, this is an all-day thing. This is an all-day thing, Flo, that you will see here. What is also happening, I'll just bring you to this. It's clearly been a long day for students, so now they've also gone out to try and get some food to feed some of the students who are here at... is this from Pick and Pay, sir? Flo, you'll give me a second there. That students themselves, they're quite hungry now. They're obviously looking after themselves, being fed. I'm being called to order here by one of the gentlemen, but it's fine. Flo, we'll continue with our broadcast. I think now they're just going to have a bit of a bite to eat. And but the protest itself continues. Yes.
Come bring food here. Angry, I say you are a progressive newsroom station. Bring food here for protest.
Flo,
need to come and eat with us.
All right. So, Flo, the students, I think, are just going to take a moment now and have a bite to eat. It's been an all-day affair here on the streets. we're going to leave them to that. And yeah, but as far as it stands at the moment, here, this is where you have the street here on Bertha Street in Braamfontein, which has been cordoned off
and just
by strewn rocks.
Just as we wrap up our conversation,
that are burning here. Yeah.
Chris, as we wrap up our conversation, I mean, you know, I was speaking to the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Mr. Buti Manamela, and he seems kind of perturbed at why you know, these protests are continuing, particularly given the fact that the minister has spoken already about the fact that funding will be reprioritized, and I'm just wondering, as you are with some of the students there, what their reaction is to what the Minister of Higher Education had to say then this morning about the fact that, look, okay, we will reprioritize funding so that you know, more students are able indeed to get in and be funded. I wonder if the students are still unhappy with the issue of reprioritizing funding. I mean, it did seem that the Deputy Minister felt that there shouldn't even be a protest at this time still.
Well, Flo, this is very difficult to say at this particular point. It's very difficult to say exactly how many students, because there are pockets of students in different parts of the Johannesburg CBD. So, you know, clearly the message that was sent today, there seems to be a trust deficit between government and the students in these universities, or the students that are trying to get into these universities. Remember, promises were made a long time ago for free education. That has not materialized. So hence you see this trust deficit. The only thing, I guess, that these students are going to believe if something is actually done. Remember, I've been saying 5 years ago, I think it was, Flo, I was standing right here on these streets reporting on the very same protest of students wanting to be included in universities. Nothing has changed. Every time there comes a period for registration at universities in South Africa, it is met with these kinds of protests where poor students and even those who've managed somehow to galvanize or to try and gather money to get themselves an education. It's very difficult when you're owning universities and you're being told you can't register the following year in order to get into those universities and continue with your studies. So there's a huge trust deficit at the moment between, you know, between government and students. And I see there's a car speeding through this particular way. I'm just going to get out of the way because it often becomes a problem when some of these cars try to get through these areas where we are, and students really get unhappy about that, and we try to move out of the way a bit. So that huge trust deficit flow is still there. The students don't believe government. They don't believe what government is saying. They don't believe the press conferences. They don't believe the Vice Chancellor of Wits University. And I guess the only thing that would need to change now, according to them, is some kind of action. Without that, I'm afraid, if these protests do die down, then chances are next year we'll see the same thing again.
All right, thanks, Chriselda. Let's continue on this, but we're bringing you other visuals from Kingsway campus, just a stone's throw